Hi, I'm Rosh from Energy Matters. Welcome to our podcast, Road to Zero, where we dive headfirst into all things renewable. Join us as we chat with industry experts, tech specialists, and some of your favorite TV and radio personalities asking the renewable energy questions that you want answers to. Our goal, a zero carbon future. Today, I am absolutely delighted to be joined by an expert in his field, co-founder and head of solutions for EnergyFlex, Craig Phasey. Craig, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Rosh. How are you?
I am very well, mate. The sun is shining, which is always a positive. And look, it's been a fantastic week so far. Have you had a good week?
I have indeed, yeah. In fact, I just got back from a holiday visiting my son over in Perth, so it's a magic week.
Oh my God, Perth is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm most surprised how warm the ocean is over there. But now I live on the Gold Coast. I'm not too disappointed, but it's absolutely stunning. Well, welcome back, Craig. You and I haven't really spoken before, so I apologize in advance. I want to know more about you because I've obviously had a look at your site. I know what EnergyFlex gets up to in part, so I want to explore that more in today's podcast. But first and foremost, if you can tell me a little bit more about yourself, your career to date, and what's led you to starting EnergyFlex.
Okay, it's kind of a roundabout journey, but we'll get there in the end, right? I joined the Air Force when I left school, did a degree in maths and physics, and then ended up spending 25 odd years, or almost 25 years in Air Force, working mainly in intelligence. And a lot of people say, oh, is that exciting? In fact, a friend's mother said, is it like James Bond? And I replied, well, not every day. No, it's nothing like that. But it turns out that sort of work is basically complex systems risk management, which no one sort of really said, and we didn't express it in that terms, but that's really what we were doing. Then after that, I got into consulting, and systems engineering consulting is where I ended up, which again is complex systems risk management. It's how do we live in a world that looks complicated, but sometimes you get different responses from the same actions, and how do we actually sort things out to make sure we can survive and thrive in that environment, which was a perfect setup to actually discover that energy is actually the key to everything that we're doing and something that needs to be focused on, especially as we transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy.
Which is absolutely amazing. I mean, like, first and foremost, I mean, I'm not going to go off tangent, but I definitely want to find out more about the intelligence stuff because, like, the people have asked you, I'm always super curious, and I remember leaving school and I wanted to join the Air Force too. Bad asthma, and one of my friends said, let's join MI5 instead. I didn't clearly, but at the same token, it certainly interests me. But what inspired you to create EnergyFlex? I mean, and how does that really, and if you can elaborate on that, and how it actually contributes to achieving a zero carbon future?
Well, again, it was sort of we never thought of it. We sort of followed our nose, right? So we were working for a defence systems engineering consultancy. And we got asked by Shell QGC, the coal seam gas company up here in Queensland, if we could have a look at their energy problem. And essentially they said it's uncontrollable. We've tried everything that we can think of. If you guys who are completely outside of the whole energy industry can't find out what we're doing or how we could control it, then we'll just have to accept it, right? We had a look at it and we realized that they were trying to control it inside contracting and in financing and in that sort of area, whereas they were spending it in the control room as they were running the field. And they were running the field without any reference to electricity price. And we discovered that people treat electricity differently from every other commodity in our lives, right? We don't treat petrol that way. If the petrol is expensive, you buy less. If it's not, you fill up, that sort of thing, right? We don't do that with electricity. And this was sort of 2017, just as the world really woke up to the dangers of climate change. The defence company decided they needed to focus back on defence. And we said, this energy thing is too big to let go. It's, sort of in your 50s, you want a crusade to try and change the world, well, this is the one, right? And so with their blessing, we stepped out, and the key message is that we're changing the way we're generating electricity. Flexibility, timing now becomes the most important part, and we need to re-educate our society and then the whole world about this important change in the whole energy system. And if we do that, everything gets better. If we don't do it, I firmly believe that there isn't a solution.
I completely agree with you. And I also share your sentiment as well. I mean, previously to this, before I got into solar energy, I worked in energy, primarily with retail electricity and gas. And you're absolutely right. I mean, really, everyone just takes energy for granted. You come home, you switch on the lights, turn on the television, you get a bill, you pay it, and it's only when it's really super hot, super cold, and you throw your air conditioning on that you suddenly receive a much larger bill than you anticipated. Then it becomes, and there's a lot of pressure to that too. But fundamentally, it's something you need, which is actually why I'm very curious and to explore more about EnergyFlex. I love your website, by the way, and I love that cheeky little video you've got there about timing is everything, which is I was trying to rip it off YouTube. I didn't have time, but it looks absolutely fantastic. So it's worth watching, guys. If anyone's listening or watching today, jump onto energyflex.com.au and check out their YouTube videos. It's very entertaining. But what I do see as a bit of a common denominator going through your website, and we'll touch on the timing as well in a little while, it's more so about the concept of energy wellness and becoming a renewables ready. So can you explain what that means and why it's important?
Well, there's a lot of wellness ideas going around. And wellness is actually attacking the holistic element, not just a single, like you can take a medicine for a particular ailment, but it's actually looking at what about you as a whole person? How do I fix everything rather than just fix one thing? And if you fix just one part of a complex organization, oftentimes you make other parts worse. So you have to work on everything at once, right? So the wellness idea is energy touches, well, we use energy for everything that we do. It touches everything, right? And so you need to understand the whole system to be able to actually take advantage of it. Right? And then the renewables ready is this thing isn't going to change overnight, right? So you don't have to wake up one day and then everything's changed, but you do have to make gradual changes. As the system changes with you, you need to be ready for it. And so the renewables ready, it's actually understanding what's coming and preparing yourself, just like training for a marathon, preparing yourself for what's going to come so that when it does come, you can take it in your stride rather than, collapsing and falling in a heap because you simply didn't prepare for it.
So then tying in the importance of timing, and let's just take this as a concept, why is that, crucial to the transition to renewables?
Good question. Here's the thing, right? If Edison walked into a coal-fired power station now, he would feel completely at home, right? There's different screens, but it does exactly the same thing as what he designed way back in, late 1800s, right? And under that environment, anytime we needed more electricity, you could just pump up the control lever, pour some more coal in, and get the power that you wanted, right? That was great, and we've got everything we've got because of that system, right? It's just that we can't continue to do it. That's the only problem, right? Now, with renewables, all renewable energy comes from the sun, right? People often think that solar comes from the sun, but wind is just wind. No, wind is still from the sun, right? Everything comes from the sun. And the sun outputs energy constantly, but we live on an Earth that's rotating. So the energy that we receive is, it has to be variable because we're going around, right? And so in a renewable system, when the sun is shining on where we are, when we're actually facing the sun, there's way more energy than we need. And when we're facing away from the sun, there may simply not be enough, right? So that makes the timing important because there isn't a single technology that people can come up with that overcomes that rotation of the Earth. And I mean, if we did overcome the rotation of the Earth, I think we'd be in some pretty big trouble anyway, right? So
yeah, we would.
it's a natural physical phenomenon that renewable energy is variable, it's intermittent, and it's correlated. That means that when one person's generating, everyone's generating, and when one person's not, pretty much no one isn't. So the thing is, you have to actually live within the confines of the system that we've got, and in a renewable system, that means variability.
Wow. So tell me, with that in mind, I mean, how does EnergyFlex actually empower individuals and businesses to make a difference in energy transition?
Well, the main way we empower businesses to make a difference is to understand what's going on, right? And I mentioned Edison before, right? For the old system to work, we had to be predictable. And so the way we were predictable was with flat tariffs, so you didn't have to think about power. And then it was just habits. We did the same sorts of things. And so we could predict, this time next year, weather will change a little bit, but the amount of power we use next year will be pretty much the same as the amount of power we use now, right? So we were trained not to think about electricity. We were trained just to do the same things, whatever we wanted to do, and the system could handle it. Now that the system's changing, we need to understand what's happening in the generation process, how the energy system is working. And as soon as you understand it, you'll find ways to improve what you're doing to take advantage of it. Because the price of electricity varies wildly with availability. There's a profile that we can show. The profile is stable. Every day at about the same time, the price is either high or low, and you can predict it like you can predict the tides. Right? The exact height is different, but the timing is fairly stable. So if you can understand that and change your operations to match the way electricity is being generated, then essentially your electricity pretty much becomes free.
Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. And I'm assuming, I say I'm assuming, but I know that you have some amazing visual solutions to obviously help the end user, both businesses and consumers, understand that through your application. Can you kind of let me know a little bit more about how that works and how it motivates users to make smarter energy choices?
Well, we struggled a lot with this, right? Because, I said I worked in complex systems. Well, this is complicated as all get go, right? I think the system sort of makes it that way to sort of push people off. If they become curious about energy, it's just so complex that, don't worry about it. And then we go back to being just sort of, not really lemmings, but, we become sheep again, right? Off you go. But actually, it's understandable to everyday people. Right? So we created our EnergyFlex rating. The rating takes the way you use energy at your house or at your business. And we drape that over the cost profile for electricity each day. And then we give you a rating. We add in some other things, your solar generation, weather, what's going on, this sort of thing. Right? And we give you a rating of how well you're using renewable energy. Now, the rating, it's our EnergyFlex rating. It's between 0 and 5. 0 is pretty bad, and 5 is you're a hero using all renewable energy, right? That is a single rating that's basically giving you a measure of how well am I going. Right? Now, no one really knows what an EnergyFlex rating of 2.5 means, right? No one knows what a 2-star dishwasher rating means, but everyone knows that 3 is better than 2.5 and 3.5 is better than 2, right? And if the app and the platform takes you through ways to improve your rating, if you focus on ways to improve your rating, your costs will go down and your emissions will go down. And that's as simple as it gets, really.
Which is absolutely awesome. So it's almost like you applying a little bit of game theory, which I love, which kind of gives you, you have indicators where you really immediately know what your energy rating looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course, the motivation from this point to say, right, well, if I take these certain measures or actions, I can now see that improve to maybe a 3.5. I mean, How do you find the rating transitions and, the adoption of those different strategies that you recommend to homeowners and businesses alike? How quickly do you see that trend changing? I'm assuming you can track that data and kind of see how different accounts are changing over time.
We can basically. So the app has really been available in real anger. I mean, we've had to rebuild it a couple of times, which anyone that's built an app will be familiar with. Right?
Yeah.
And so we really kicked off in about March this year is when we first started with, and at that stage we had 300 whole users, and now we're just past 3,500, and so It's come on really well, right? But on the first 90 days on the platform, what we see, people get on, just having your eyes open that something can be done is really powerful, right? And also getting a rating and then discovering, as a good friend, head of sustainability at a major bank who closed the doors and said, "Don't tell anyone, my rating's only 1.6," And it's a real motivating factor, because as soon as someone gets a rating, the natural thing for everyone around to say is, "What'd you get?" Right? And so it is a motivating factor. People start to change because they know they can, right? And so over the first 90 days, we see the rating go up. The emissions go down, but what we have seen, this is a really important part, emissions go down usually without using less power. We're not saying you have to wind your belt in. We're not saying you have to go on an energy diet. We're just saying change the timing. And the goal is you can use the same power or even more power, so long as you change when, or you adjust when you are using it, right? So we see emissions go down, the rating goes up. Cost is an interesting one. We've only just launched a plan comparison engine on the platform. Turns out it's really hard. I'm not sure if the retailers are doing it intentionally or it's just that, it is complex, but it's really hard to work out what the best plan for you is, but we've got it cracked, right? And so now we're seeing people starting to change their retailers, and that's where the real cost savings come in, because you have to have an electricity plan that matches the way you're using electricity to be able to get the savings, right? But there's really pleasing results coming out of the platform now,
which is amazing. And like on plans, I mean, if anyone listening or watching, I mean, it's for my personal opinion, I do another comparison of my energy plan every 6 months just to identify what else is out there, because the plans do consistently chop and change based upon either being buying at a certain rate, and then obviously assigning 3,000 different potential plans they can offer to different customers at any given time. So it's worth changing, doing the research and actually getting a comparison done frequently, just to understand. I mean, I'm not one to chop and change frequently, but I do like to know what's out there, and if there's a better deal out there. And the content, and as you said about timing, I mean, that's key. I mean, what other effective ways can EnergyFlex help users by saving money and reducing their carbon footprint? What else is there?
Well, it's habits is what we're talking about, right? A lot of people have tried the idea of we'll send you an alert and you can change, right? That's good from a couple of perspectives. If you are home and it is really bad and you can do something, you can get up and change, right? The problem is that on any given day, an action for a short period of time doesn't necessarily save you a lot of money, and people tend to get they get excited, and then they discover it's not as big as they think, and they get sort of a little bit bored with it, I guess, right? So our focus is on habits. We want you to change your habits so you can make one change and then just continue to do that, and you reap the benefits over time. An easy one to talk about is your dishwasher, right? The standard thing is have dinner, clean up, put the stuff in the dishwasher, turn the dishwasher on, right? That means that you'll be turning the dishwasher on during the most expensive time for electricity in the whole day, right? Now, let's do some quick sums. Take a 5-star dishwasher at, let's say it uses 2 kilowatt hours of power to run it. Sorry, 1 kilowatt hour for 5-star, 2 kilowatt hours for 3-star, right? If you run a 1 kilowatt hour dishwasher immediately after dinner and the price of electricity is 60 cents a kilowatt hour, it'll cost you 60 cents. If you run a 3-star dishwasher at lunchtime and the price is 1 cent per kilowatt hour, right, it'll cost you 2 cents. That's the difference of timing versus efficiency. And the thing is, the habit is, instead of turning it on after dinner, I turn it off as I leave for work, and I turn it on as I leave for work in the morning. If you've got a timer on it, even better, right? So all you have to do is that one change, and it's actually a significant energy impact just from one appliance. And then there's a whole bunch of extra things you can do, that sort of stuff. These are the things where they're free or very low cost actions that you can do to start taking control of your energy use, energy emissions, energy costs.
That's absolutely incredible. And you're right, it's really the little things that people can adopt can make a huge difference initially, at least. At least I've seen people just by changing their electric hot water timers just to come on, for a short blast, a couple hours a day at maximum temperature.
I discovered a really interesting thing. If you've got off-peak hot water and you've got solar on your roof, then your solar is not using your hot water is not using your solar. Amazing. So you're selling it for 10 cents and you're heating your water for 35, 40 cents. It just drives me spare. Right?
Completely. It's why buy that. So on meters, which is actually transitions nicely to my next question. I mean, what we've seen a lot of over the last decade or so is the implementation of smart meters. And I know these are often seen as a key enabler, of the sort of energy transition. I mean, how do you guys actually use that smart meter data to empower consumers and then drives behavioural change?
Well, we reckon that smart meters are the key technology for the whole energy transition. Right? You can't manage what you can't measure, and a smart meter is the way to measure the power that you're using. Right? So we access smart meter data through a system the government's put in called Consumer Data Right. You may have heard of open banking, where you can share your banking data. This is open energy. You can share your energy data. So what we do is we use the public infrastructure that's necessary to actually make the system work for billing and for everything to run, right? We just piggyback on the back of that stuff that already exists. That allows us to gather your data. It's called near real time. Once every day, we download what you did yesterday. And if you come back to habits, that's a good enough rate to be able to change a habit, right? And then because we're using stuff that already exists, it allows us to do it at a price point, which is a good one, i.e. free, right? So we gather the data, we pull it in, we manipulate it, and we give you the insights. And we can do that free of charge every day because of this consumer data rights system. It's using stuff that you already own, that you've already paid for, to give you extra benefit from what you've already got.
And you do this for free?
We do, yeah.
That's incredibly kind of you. I mean, the amount of times I've spoken to my retailer, got interval data, and then try to create some sort of pivot table. It's taken me like a few hours.
Yeah.
So clearly you guys have actually come up with a way of doing it a lot quicker and easier, which is super helpful. And I think it's really, I mean, we've just had our first quarterly bill, and I was just trying to identify, the inclusion of air conditioning, which has only been the last 3 weeks, over the last 12, over a 12-week billing cycle, to understand where it happened. But once again, you don't get that level of data on your bill. You have to request it, and then once again, be able to slice it and dice it from you guys, which is incredible. It makes it a lot easier and gives you that, what you need visually as well, just to understand how you are using that. I mean, can you share some other inspiring stories for EnergyFlex users who have made significant changes with their energy habits? A few of your heroes from 2-star to 5-star?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Because the stories, they're really important on a personal basis. But when you stand back and have a look at it, sometimes you think, does that really matter? Well, it matters to the person, right? So, an average electricity bill somewhere, sort of 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000, depending on where you are, which state you're in, right? Which is a lot of money, but compared with the other things that we spend our money on, like your mortgage, right? It cannot, sometimes it doesn't seem like a lot of money, right? So you're not getting a lottery win with EnergyFlex because you don't spend that sort of money, right? But I was talking to one guy from northwestern Melbourne, and he asked for scheduled an appointment, and then he missed the appointment. And I got back to him and said, hey, keen to talk. And he apologized profusely and said, look, he'd run out of data, and he was struggling to get the cash together to be able to pay some data so that he could talk to us, right? And I thought, geez, that's pretty bad, Had a look at his bill. His bill for the last quarter was over $1,200, right? And a quick comparison, even with his existing retailer, the best plan that they had, it was just over $600, right? And the best plan was a touch under $450, right? And now, when you think of it, that's sort of a 50% reduction in your electricity bill, which on a percentage basis is a lot, right?
Yeah.
But it's $2,500 a year. So on a lottery win, it's not a lottery win, right? It's But if you're struggling to pull together some cash to pay for some data, that's a sort of a life-changing type of result, right? And we see that. We see people saving money, saving their, reducing their carbon emissions, and especially starting to feel really good about themselves because they're starting to be able to get some control, some level of control in something that they have thought, there was nothing they could do about, and now I can, right? So if you go to our website, there's a whole bunch of success stories on there, bright, shiny people doing wonderful things, which is all good. But I thought I'd share that one because, it really touched me to think, here's someone that is really doing it tough, and here's an ability that we can help them out.
Absolutely. And look, it still horrifies me. I mean, coming from the UK, the key issue we have is in winter, we have obviously a fairly broad population, but there's, obviously the age population is significant, and and the cost of electricity and gas, particularly in the UK, is horrific. So, when it gets to winter, and because there is still such a heavy reliance on gas for, for central heating, I mean, we just, we know stories of so many people's, grandparents where they just can't afford to have their heating on because of the bills, which is absolutely horrible. So it's easy to take energy for granted if you can afford your bills. And at the same token, there's a lot of people doing it tough out there who have to make those sort of choices. And even being in Queensland, I've got friends who only recently had air conditioning installed after several years. So they've gone through some crazy hot temperatures purely from cost. It's like, well, we can't afford air conditioning right now, so we're having to make it work. And they're finally scraping away and managed to get it installed recently, which is fantastic. So it's good for us to come visit a nice air conditioned home. But once again, it's something you take for granted. I mean, I'm happy in the last response that you just made as well. I mean, we did touch on, obviously we've been talking about saving energy and saving on your back pocket, which is, to be honest in the last 15 years, it is the primary reason people have transitioned to renewable energy. It's okay. I'm sick and tired of paying increasingly extravagant energy bills based upon, various reasons out there as to why electricity's gone up in price. But really, the goal I know that we both share is also to reduce carbon footprint. And, that has a massive impact on the planet on the whole, the way we live, the variances and the impacts on climate change and, the impact global warming has on climate change is there to be seen. I mean, really, what advice would you give to homeowners and businesses listening or watching today as to, what they can do in terms of their contribution to this transition?
This is I love this. This is a wonderful story, right? The way you can, the best thing that you can do for the energy transition, for climate change, all of this sort of stuff, the best thing you can do is save money, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. I mean, we ran a publicity, burst a while back and said, look, if renewables are so cheap, how come my bill's going up, right? And the answer is it's the way you're using it, right? If you understand how to use it, it's cheap. Now, the thing is, if you make it cheap, because when renewables are generating, the price crashes, and when they're not, the price skyrockets. And they think of all of the old generators have to recover all of the money that they're losing each day overnight, and their costs are going up at the same time, right? So whatever you save during the day, if you continue to use it overnight, you will pay for and then some because of the way the system's going, right? But if you understand the way it's going and you change your use to match the way it's being generated and avoid it when it's not, and that doesn't mean you can't have a party. It means don't do it every night, right? You can still, we still live. Life has to still be wonderful, but life can be wonderful if we live within the renewable envelope. So if you focus, get on EnergyFlex, get your rating, focus on improving your rating. Essentially, the easiest way to focus on improving your rating is focus on reducing your costs. Because of the way the energy system is going, the only way you'll be able to reduce your costs is to use more renewables and to use less fossil fuels, right? And if you do that, you're not only saving your pocket, you're saving the planet as well.
So with that in mind, a left field question, are you a fan of battery storage?
Battery's really important, right? But we have a thing we call virtual storage, right? Which is where instead of, you need battery storage for the things that you can't afford not to do. But you shouldn't be using battery storage for anything that you can afford to do or that you can do when it's actually being directly generated, right? So battery storage, I'm a fan of battery storage in a limited role. I think, we seem to say that, we can do this energy transition and no one has to change anything. I think we'll price ourselves out of business if we do that. But if we change the way we're doing what we're doing, and then we still need battery storage for the vital things that we can't get away from, right? But you want it to be a small amount, and you want it to use it frequently. So that means that, basically the sort of storage we need overnight when we do get a drought, sorry to get a bit technical, but it needs to be, actually, we need to change our usage so we can drop it and extend it. Because if we've got, 2 weeks worth of battery storage for a Dunkelflaut event, a sort of 1 in 20 year sun and wind drought, right? The economics of it don't stack up. You won't be able to sell it for 1 year. But if we're able to vary how we're using power, then enough power to run us through 2 or 3 days can run us through 2 weeks. It is a natural disaster. We have to treat it like a natural disaster. It's the same as a cyclone. We don't continue to operate and go to work, do all the same stuff in a cyclone, right? A Dunkelflaut event will be a natural disaster, and we'll have to adjust our society to deal with it. But if we practice, we can float through it. If we don't practice, it'll wipe us out.
No, which is absolutely bang on. And I think, conceptually with what we've discussed so far on this podcast is really getting your timing right throughout the daytime. When you are producing solar power, you've got a significant amount of energy that you created from your own generation, from your own roof. Learn how to manage that effectively throughout the daytime. So you're actually doing things at the right time. When you're not even producing solar power, there's still strategies you can put in place to make sure, as you said earlier, with the even with the dishwasher, washing machine, all those major appliances. But then for those early mornings and evenings where there is no sun, that battery storage should just be enough to just really sort of position you across until the next morning, until the sun comes back out.
It's the same for batteries and for solar. You need to get your use under control first, and then put the systems in to support it, right? If if you just put the systems in without changing your use, then, things will still get better, but you might actually be putting more capital in than you can actually properly recover.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. We're coming to the end of the call, but before we finish, one last question. I mean, what are your hopes for the future of energy in Australia? I mean, and how can we collectively achieve a sustainable and prosperous, if you like, energy system?
Great question. So look, Australia, basically we survive on energy, right? Our three of our, I'm not sure of the fourth one, but three of our biggest exports are coal, gas, and iron ore, which basically needs coal, right? We're so far up the fossil fuel energy mountain. The trick is actually coming down that. But the renewable energy mountain that we've got here, we've got the world's best solar resource and wind resource, and we've got plenty of space to actually, plenty of space to use it. And we've got a high technology workforce that can take advantage of all of that energy. So we're in a perfect position to actually create a thriving renewable energy economy if we can actually see our way clear to climb down from this fossil fuel one and climb up the renewables one, right? I see energy should get really boring, right? The price of energy stops being exciting and it starts coming back down just to the long run marginal cost of solar and wind, which is at the moment around about 4 cents a kilowatt hour is what it should cost, right? And if we're actually operating properly, it'll be that cost for everybody, right? Now, how do we get there? Come back to save money, right? Focus on saving money for yourself. The idea of our democracy is that we're supposed to vote in our own self-interest. And if we vote in our own self-interest, that collective voting in our own self-interest should produce the best, that's the theory, right? It should produce the best outcome for society, right? But in energy, that's what we can do, right? Because there's no law that you could pass that says you can't turn your light off, right? Or you can't turn the vacuum cleaner off. Right? So you're able to actually use electricity. You're able to choose how to use electricity. And if you choose to use electricity and to save money, to do everything you want to do in the cheapest way possible, then you will also be choosing renewables, and you'll be choosing a new renewable future for the whole country. And I don't think it really matters too much about regulation, because the regulation will follow the will of the people as they shift the way they're using power. Right now, think about it. Saudi Arabia exists simply because of oil, right?
Correct.
If it didn't have oil, you'd have Bedouin tribes in the desert, or like you have out in the Sahara. With oil, all manner of stuff can go on, right? We're in exactly the same position. We've got a huge energy future ahead of us, a huge renewable energy future ahead of us, huge resources, the right population, the right sort of structure to be able to do it. It's just up to us to follow our own self-interest and actually change the way we use energy to make everything better.
Absolutely amazing, mate. Look, I'm truly inspired, and you almost, from my perspective, I mean, everything you just said there in your closing to that question was absolutely bang on. I don't think anyone really, and a lot of people are starting to wise up to the impact they can have. But as an individual, just making small changes to the way you live life and the way you use electricity, although you may not see a massive decline in your power bill, it will save you money over time. It's the analogy, like, look after the cents and the dollars will take care of themselves. So really, and the same thing applies with our our country and our planet. Reducing your carbon footprint is just a series of small actions. It's nothing, doesn't have to be massive. It's just a series of small actions. And if everyone took them, before you realize, a carbon footprint reduced, we're slowing down global warming. And all of a sudden, the powers that be and the geniuses out there that, sort of create the best technology have time to catch up. And fundamentally, that's what we're playing for right now. Craig, thank you so much for jumping on, mate. You've been absolutely awesome to talk to. Super inspiring. It's a shame we kind of limit these things to 30 minutes, because I'm sure this one could go on for about 2 or 3 hours.
Don't get me at a party. Just
mate, I need to meet you in a bar over a glass of red, and then that'll be a much longer conversation. But for now, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rosh. Great to see you.
Good man. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. That was super knowledgeable. EnergyFlex.com.au. Jump onto their website, read all about them. These guys are super inspiring, and they're doing some great work. So it's certainly worth jumping on to have a look and see how they can help you both at home and in your business. Before we finish, if you've yet to go solar or add a battery or EV charger, it's now. There's never been a better time. The cost of equipment has continually come down. I think it's pretty much plateaued more recently, especially with solar panels. But there are some fantastic incentives out there. If you live in New South Wales, as from tomorrow as from today, the 1st of November, you'll be able to take advantage of a new state-based incentive. So to add battery storage, as well as various energy efficiency products to your home. So certainly have a look at that. Same applies in Victoria, South Australia. There's some amazing incentives being out there. Of course, with solar panels themselves, there's still federal STCs, which means you still get an incentive at the point of sale to install solar power on your roof. My theory and my recommendation is to max out your roof as much as you possibly can do. More is less. And at the same token, the more power panels you have on your roof, the more options you have. Especially as today's rates. So jump onto our website at energymatters.com.au/free solar quotes and get a quote for any type of solar technology. Please feel free to follow us on social media, especially on YouTube, so you can watch videos like this one and also catch up on the stuff that we've already launched over the past few months. And other than that, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you next time. All the best.